started, I wanted to introduce you to our speaker for today. Siva Shavali is a senior architect with Kellton Tech. He has extensive knowledge of digital business platform drivers such as API management, the Internet of Things, microservices, DevOps, continuous delivery, and hybrid integration platforms. He's passionate about helping enterprises modernize operations to increase efficiency, capitalize on new revenue opportunities, and catapult growth. But before we get started with our actual webinar, I wanted to go over a little bit of housekeeping. Should you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A section of your control panel, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. If we don't have time to respond to all of the questions live, we'll respond to them via email. As a reminder, this session is being recorded. For those of you that opted in to receive a link to the recording and slide deck, we'll be sending that out in the next few days. All right, and let me just start with a brief introduction to Kellton Tech. Kellton Tech has been a pioneer of digital transformation for the past decade with operations in North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Our clients range from startups to Fortune 500 companies with a core strength supported through our ISO 9001 certification and CMMI Level 5 compliance. We are 1,500 plus employees strong and are a publicly traded company. Next slide, please. Kellton Tech is a new age global IT services consulting company. We design, develop, and operate digital technologies that create new business models for our clients. Our digital services span across 6 major pillars. Digital transformation. Our digital services include IoT, social, mobile, analytics, and cloud-based solutions. Digital integration provides integration services in support of your digital systems. Digital enterprise enables intelligent enterprises by leveraging end-to-end SAP solutions as an SAP Gold partner. Our outsourced product development and support services, digital commerce and marketing, which delivers omnichannel e-commerce solutions focused on improving the overall customer experience, and IoT-enabled platform solutions, which include IoT solutions for oil and gas and the manufacturing industries. And now I'd like to hand it over to Siva to begin our official webinar discussion on Building IoT Solutions 101. Siva?
Yep. Thank you, Kaisha. Greetings of the day, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. Just to set an expectation out of it, this webinar is especially intended, but not just limited to them, for those people who have started or about to start their journey upon IoT projects or have initiatives to start IoT projects in the near future. We will be talking about the top 4 IoT pilot implementation pitfalls that the organizations are falling into. And then we'll cover some the targeted or quick wins on the revenue growth opportunities perspective. Followed by, we'll talk about a principled approach of accelerating the IoT solutions by choosing the right IoT platforms. And we will also show a simple demo on how to integrate an IoT device generated data with an on-premise application system like database in our specific case. So in 2019 at this stage, we don't really need a separate introduction to what is IoT. In brief, IoT is, as the name itself indicates, it's a set of physical things in the world, like the cars, manufacturing equipment, and electrical appliances, the consumer goods, etc., and a lot more of such kind of devices are attached with appropriate electronic sensors, which essentially capture the physical properties around those devices, or the equipment that they are connected with, or the people who are using those devices. So it will capture the analytics around all of this information. It can also capture the physical properties of the ambience around it, so that the captured information is usable by a concerned party. The concerned party can be a consumer, the end consumer, or it can be an industry itself or an organization itself, essentially. So in either cases, based on the data generated, the user or the organizations have some actionables to perform that will actually benefit them in their specific use cases. So IoT as such is a chain of technical solutions. So with the proliferation of devices in the industry, we have a number of use cases like predictive maintenance in the case of in the case of manufacturing industry, where you can monitor the equipment health and performance, and then be able to understand when does a specific equipment need maintenance beforehand, before it actually creates a production disruption. Any unplanned disruption could definitely affect the production schedules and production rate, and also the workforce safety as well. And I'm not going to cover all of the examples here, but I will take another example of probably a healthcare industry, where an automated patient monitoring healthcare system. For example, if you have a patient, if you have a patient which is being taken care right now, the embedded sensors into the patient body can actually get you the real-time patient health statistics to the healthcare provider. That way, the healthcare provider can provide more trusted healthcare to the patients. That way, they can save a lot of lives. At the same time, it can also be like profitable and trustworthy business, right? So these are some of the examples. So as we understand, like in 2020, the amount of IoT devices are almost crossing like 20 billion, and the proliferation of these devices is expected to grow to 25 to 30 billions in number in the next 2 to 5 years. So with this rapid growth of the IoT across the world, across the globe, a lot of organizations, like a lot of industries like manufacturing, retail, telecommunications, energy and utilities, healthcare, have started to embrace the potential that IoT brings to the table. And the current slide talks about the current statistics of where each of the industries are in terms of leveraging the IoT solutions. So manufacturing across North America is actually spearheading the IoT solutions, because obviously there are a lot of use cases. We'll be talking about manufacturing industry specific use cases a little more in deep today. EMEA and APAC are a little behind the North American speed in the IoT solutions. So the reason that we chose to talk about this specific topic today is because a number of organizations are understanding how IoT can benefit them, or visualizing how IoT can benefit them, and starting to embrace IoT. But at the same time, they're also falling into the common trap of some specific problems, and then they're not able to fully leverage their pilot investments. They're not able to fully see the benefit of their pilot investments. Essentially, a kind of various surveys conducted by different organizations like McKinsey and Company and IDC, etc. 70% of the organizations are failing to achieve the real business benefit. So they ended up being like failures. And 85% of the IoT solutions, IoT projects are kind of going like very slow. Essentially, they are like running like more than a year or more than even 2 years. Some statistics say that about 28% of integration IoT pilots are happening beyond 2 years, which is definitely a very slow pace. And about 60% of the IoT about 60% of these projects are essentially stopping at connecting the devices and then using that data for simple operational purposes or automating the stuff. And that's where they're not able to see the full benefits that IoT brings to the table. And some of the reasons could be like the budget already burnt out by the time they see the initial quick wins itself, or it can be because of the reasons that they do not have enough abilities or enough roadmap or strategies to leverage the generated data. That is where, as per the research and as per the studies that we have conducted, we have categorized the common problems that the organizations fall into 4 common problems. The first one is the IoT pilot project running in isolation. So running in isolation, essentially in an organization, we usually have multiple business units. Sometimes these business units are completely running in isolation as per their traditional organizational model itself, and they do have some IIT pilot implementations at each business unit level. And so the other business unit may not be always aware of what the progress or what initiatives are going on the other business unit side. So they have to rediscover everything on their side. That's a business problem fundamentally, the business execution model problem. And the other problem is like focusing too much on technology or business strategies for drivers. Some of the times, the business leaders, essentially the executive level leaders, sometimes get driven by the hype created. Like back in 2013, IoT could be a hype. And so they might have started using like IoT, or they wanted to be the pioneers or pilots in terms of starting the IoT solutions early. But then what business values are they expecting out of it? Probably they might have like too many expectations out of it or too less expectations out of it, but they're essentially driven by too much of technology hype over how or actually solutioning a specific problem or targeting a specific problem in the business. And so that's where it's not able to articulate the real business value out of a pilot, and you're also consuming a lot of budget in between. And second problem is vertical integration strategies with IoT platform. As we understand, vertical integration strategy may not always good in multiple scenarios, or there are very rare scenarios where a vertical integration strategy does work. So in this specific case, when I meant a vertical integration strategy, it means that people choosing to develop IoT solution from the scratch on their own, because they might have too much of devotion towards technology. They might be feeling like too much fashionable, or they might be going by an instinct, or they might want to start operating at slow at an incremental growth. So the reasons can be many, but they start with incremental approaches, and then they eventually fall into the trap of building the entire solution within the organization, and that actually can cause much more delays, because IoT, as I said, it's not a simple concept. It's a umbrella of solutions. It's an umbrella of multiple technologies under that, starting from the hardware and the firmware itself until the integration with cloud systems. So being unaware of all these things, so people get into building everything from the scratch within the organization, and that's where, or they might outsource it to consultants, but this particular strategy could actually make them spend too much time on that. And the next one is like lack of industry governance and on standards and security. Of course, IoT industry or IoT implementation industry is not as mature as the other industries that we talk about. For example, APIs, we do have certain kind of industry standards, or we are all used to start building those API solutions, whereas the case is not exactly same with IoT. Every time we think of IoT, the biggest concern that the organizations think of is like, how do they secure the data? Not just the data, the devices itself. And of course, when it comes to the data in the cloud, how do they secure their data? This is a bigger concern for companies like, for industries like banking and regulated companies. So that's another biggest concern. The last one that we captured was lack of efficient analytical capability. So again, the technological roadmap wise, what we are essentially targeting through IoT is the key driver here. When we think of IoT and automating the stuff using IoT devices, that's the first phase. But the next phase is it also generates loads of data that the IoT initiatives that you have generates loads of data, being able to leverage that data by doing like right analysis and interpretation of the data for managerial insight and right actionables out of it is the key in terms of being able to achieve the true benefit out of this IoT solutioning. The lack of efficient capabilities is something that's also concerning. So you end up spending a lot of time, or you end up leaving the IoT solutions in the middle, not fully leveraging the potential of it. With this, I get into the next slide, which is what are potential revenue growth opportunities that we can expect to aim at when we think of IoT use cases. For example, I'll explain all this specific example, specific opportunities in the context of manufacturing industry. When we think of production planning or production planning, starting from the production rate scheduling to workforce planning itself, we won't have always enough efficiencies. All the organizations understand that they always fall behind in terms of their production rate planning. Their operational efficiencies do not meet their targets always. They fall behind. Sometimes the demand and supply management is always not as simple as we think. A lot of various dynamic factors come into the picture. That's where accurate production planning is always challenging. But by identifying some of the issues that are in our control, for example, if your equipment health is not so great, which means a specific manufacturing equipment needs maintenance. So how do we know? One way is to have periodical maintenance, and the other way is to have a reactive approach towards that maintenance. So these are the two approaches that the organizations have been following until now. But a different approach to that is to know beforehand when a specific equipment would need maintenance, which is actually the predictive maintenance of a specific asset. That way, you can increase the productivity of that specific equipment. And also, by knowing predictive maintenance, you will be able to perform specific prevention mechanisms or maintenance procedures to avoid unplanned disruption to the production environment. And the other one is like workforce planning perspective. So, and workforce planning perspective, and you can help in achieve the efficiencies in the workforce planning, and be concerned about the safety of the workforce. What I mean by that is like if you have a unhealthy maintenance equipment or manufacturing equipment, it can impact in multiple ways. One is it's eventually it might turn out to be dangerous for the workforce working around that equipment. So you better need to take care of that beforehand rather than after the fact. And the second one is like if the specific manufacturing plant also releases like dangerous gases or excessive heat, that is also something that you want to predict beforehand and be able to perform specific maintenance procedures. In all these cases, you are addressing two different concepts here. One thing, the quality of the service and the product itself, and the timelines in which you are actually delivering the product or creating the equipment. And the second one is like maintenance of the equipment and operational efficiencies. It can also create additional value. For example, think of the situation: the manufacturing devices or the equipment or the assemblers that you're creating, if they have IoT-enabled sensors, then post-production situations also, those devices can send the device-specific information or the user-specific usage information back to the manufacturer, so that if there have to be any recalls, then we can actually perform those recalls proactively. We can call for that recall proactively. Just think of this example. If your car has a recall on that, if you have a 2018 car and you have a recall on that, usually the communication procedures are from the manufacturer to the dealership and from the dealership to you. But rather, think of this approach where you have a connected car. If you have a recall indicator on, then that directly establishes a connectivity between the end user and the organization or the manufacturer itself. That way they can actually stay connected, and then it increases the customer satisfaction and be more loyal or loyalty of the customer as well. And to that extent, it also can create a personalized business experience for that specific user. In the different case of like insurance, if you have a connected car, then if you based on your driving behavioral analytics, if you're a good driver, that allows the insurance company to capture your driving behavioral analytics and be able to generate or reduce your premium That way you are actually more loyal to that specific insurance company. It can increase customer satisfaction as well as their loyalty. And it can also enable new business models for the organization. For example, in the case of utilities industry, I always give this example. If you have if you have connected appliance, for example, if your refrigerator is connected to an IoT sensor, then that refrigerator is not really energy conservative. Then it is consuming too much of power, and the customer is always worried about the amount of bill he's getting every month. So he wants to check with the utility provider. Rather, this is all simplified if he has a connected refrigerator. That appliance can send the usage of that particular appliance statistics real time to the specific utility provider in this case, and that way the utility provider can stay engaged with the customer directly, and then also recommend him of options of probably if they have a digital marketplace where they are actually selling like energy conservative appliances, they can also generate a lead for those digital marketplace marketing teams and sales teams. That way they can also upsell and cross-sell the products, plus they can also generate new business models out of this one. So these are all like various revenue growth opportunities. It's a vast set of growth opportunities, essentially starting from operational efficiencies to customer loyalty. So when we target to achieve all these benefits, there are certain decisions or certain important considerations that we need to look at, like technological considerations and business considerations. And one of the primary technological consideration in terms of implementing these IoT solutions is, should I create the IoT solution from the scratch, or is there a way to do it some out of the box? So that's where the IoT platform come into the picture. So IoT platforms actually create an abstraction about from the from developing the IoT solutions from the hardware or firmware level. They will actually create an abstraction layer where they can take care of a lot of responsibilities, starting from device management, communicating that or sharing that or exchanging that data, device data, to cloud systems or wherever your data storage systems are, and then ensuring the security between the systems. And then potentially they can also help you towards integrating the data with your other enterprise applications or your other business partners as well. So this is what the IoT platforms do. So if we have such kind of solutions already in place, then should we choose to build the solutions from the scratch, or should we choose to go with IoT solution in the market? We have created the principled microeconomical fundamental approach for that. This framework essentially asks the customers or the people who are implementing these solutions 6 set of questions. One is, do you have limited choice of technology platforms? Are there less number of IoT platforms that are not mature enough, or tying up with a specific or with a limited number of having limited choices, tying up with any specific IoT platform provider will actually create any problems for you in terms of licensing them or the technological problems that they create eventually, etc. So the answer for this right now is like we have a number of IoT platforms available. AWS has an IoT solution, mature IoT solution. Azure has it. Software AG platform has it. It's called Cumulosity. ThingWorks has it. SAP has Leonardo IoT platform, etc. So I have just named a few of those IoT platforms. There are a number of options that customers can trust and then go with. So that's not a problem. The next one we have is R&D and pilot project costs. So this is obviously a problem, as we saw in the statistics, and about 70 to 85% of the IoT pilot projects are failing because one of the reasons that we mentioned was the pilot project costs were too much. So they, not knowing the IoT end-to-end solution approaches or the internalities of IoT project solutioning, the customers actually get into too much of R&D by themselves, and they spend too much of R&D investments, but then they don't realize the value at that point. So that's where if that is the case, then yes, it's an opportunity to look for something like an external IoT platform, out of the shelf IoT platform. The third one is industry mature and standard. Yes, industry standard and mature, that gives a set of frameworks available in the market. So based on which everyone can start creating those frameworks. But then at this point of time, we do not have too many standards and security standards. So that's where it's better to go with someone who has already put enough thought process into it and then created a solution out of it. The next one, that is subject matter expertise. Again, it's linking back to the R&D cast. If we do not have too much of IoT subject matter expertise, that is also something that we need to consider. IoT solution, IoT solution scaling is something which is not um, a very small task. It includes a family of technological products, and so we will need to be confident. We will need to be confident upon each solution stack that we are thinking of, and that way we need to think about, do we have enough subject matter expertise? If not, yes, it may be an opportunity to think about an external IoT platform. The next one, obviously, time to market. There is no question about it. If you build everything from the scratch, it takes a lot of time to market, whereas off-the-shelf products can get you there very sooner. And uncertainty can be anywhere. It can be associated with your own business, or it can be associated with the market conditions itself, or it can be associated with any IoT platform that you may want to go with. But these uncertainties in terms of dealing with, after investing huge amounts of money, you're not alone. There is an implementation or trusted implementation vendor or implementation partner like this IoT platform itself, who can actually work with you in that situation. So in all these cases, if you fall into all of this or any of this, then it's better to think about going with an external IoT platform. But that said, the thumb rule here is, if you are a beginner in the solution implementation, if you're not really into advanced stages, or you have been facing any of the problems that we have mentioned so far, then it's better to go with buy option of the IoT platforms, at least to start your implementations and then derive the basic business benefit out of it. And then you can always rethink about your decisions, build versus buy decisions, when market structures or your comfort levels or the equations within the organizations change. So the next point, if you have a little bit more talk on build versus buy decisions of the IoT platforms. So a custom build solution will allow you to build everything from the scratch, allows endless customization, and it creates a competitive advantage as well. Wherever you want a specific feature to be provided, you can definitely do so. Whereas the same thing with off-the-shelf products is like, could be very much limited. You may not have too much of customization abilities, and that's where but it will allow you to provide your solutions to the market immediately. There is a trade-off between what is priority for a specific organization. So we have actually compared specific base factors against building something from the scratch versus buying off of the shelf. So this slide talks about that. In terms of time to market, we just spoke about it. You will end up spending a lot of time when you build everything from scratch versus on this shelf, it will be lowest. And compliance with standards, if you build everything from scratch, you can build solutions that are more compliant to your organizational standards and your industry standards. Whereas on the other side, you may have restricted compliance. Of course, these IoT platforms do follow a lot of compliance requirements as well, but you may have restricted compliance in a specific situation or a specific use case. Interoperability, essentially, you can have most when you build it from the scratch, and when you build off the shelf, you may not have too much of loose coupling or loose coupling between your enterprise applications and the off-the-shelf platform itself. Scalability, most is scalable because it's all in your control. Intermediate scalability could be for multiple reasons. One could be because of your licensing and commercial reasons as well. And how much maintenance is required on the other side. If you build everything from scratch, it's a maintainable code on your own side, so that you have to end up paying It's not the amount of money that you're spending at the moment on that IoT pilot project. It's also a maintainable asset, which will actually ask for money in the coming years as well. Whereas off-the-shelf product, you may be incurring too much of money to buy the initial licenses and to start the implementations. But down the lane, your maintenance and efforts or the stuff to maintain is just the configurations and the regular maintenance fee. So in-house competencies, so you will have, definitely you will have most competencies on the technology suite that you want to start creating these applications, whereas off the shelf, you need to learn that specific technology and able to understand, or if that particular technology comes up with any baggage of other product suite, you may also want to go with that stuff. Those are also a little bit less flexible. But again, like I said, it's a trade-off between what is priority for a specific organization. With that, I will get into this slide, which is like MacNation, a company that has done basic evaluation on build versus buy. So if you follow that specific link, it will tell you how much is a build versus buy cost. So I have opened that on my screen here. So they have done for a number of years here, type of device, what is up, IoT platform deployment model, upfront costs, annual inflation rate. It pretty much considered everything into consideration, and then calculated what would be a build cost versus buy cost. So, and obviously they ended up saying that a buy is always much more cheaper than a build option. But again, based on your organizational competitive priorities and your based on your existing competitive advantages, these decisions or these calculations might change, but that's just for a difference. So when we are thinking of building the IoT solutions, the potential pain points are like significant, just to consolidate, the significant pressure to get started with IoT and prove ROI quickly. And that's where you have out-of-the-shelf IoT platforms. That's what we have been talking about. And the second one is like IoT platforms only offer a thin slice of functionality that the customers need and are difficult to couple with the core business functions, the existing enterprise applications or the functions itself. So in those cases, you may want to choose an IoT platform if you want to go with which is more interoperable and more, it's essentially loosely coupled and agnostic technology. You also want to ensure that whatever solution you are going with, it doesn't demand you to create too much of coding and as well. Out of most of these platforms these days is like self-service enabled or citizen development enabled. So you want to ensure that there is low code integration with the enterprise application. The other biggest factor that we did not spend too much time is like the network connectivity and the usage types of the enterprises. And they have to be overcome as well. That's another pain point or a challenge that the organizations have. So that is where, again, these external IoT platforms can help you, address some of those challenges. For example, it doesn't stop at that point. To a greater extent, if I talk about the device management itself, what kind of IoT devices to choose, what kind of firmware should I build on that, and what software software should I build in order to get a basic event out of a end device, and etc. So it includes a lot of that stuff. So off-the-shelf platforms will basically come up with a lot of this SDK inbuilt into it, and then just deploying those agents or that framework will essentially get you to a quick start and lets you, really accelerate your solution. Again, this slide, I'm not going to talk about each option here, but this slide briefly talks about the top IoT platforms available in the market and a feature matrix comparison between each of those. So you have Google Cloud, ThingWorx, Microsoft Azure, AWS, and Cumulocity IoT platforms. So with that quick view, I'll be moving on to the next slide. Yeah, IoT solution strategy. I always say this statement: in order to leverage the fullest potential of IoT, you just do not want to automate the stuff and then leave it at that point. In order to leverage IoT solutions at the fullest potential, you also want to create data, analyze the data, and then interpret the data for managerial insights. Those managerial insights will essentially allow you to change some processes on how a manufacturing plant actually functions. So that's what it talks about. Innovate, integrate with your systems, and then analyze those data, and then automate your stuff. On a maturity curve perspective, when you start connecting the devices, then your return on investment with respect to time from from device management to automation of the actions generated out of the data, the ROI curve will look like this one. Essentially, over a long time or over a long term, your ROI would tend to increase almost exponentially. So, considering addressing all those pain points that you had before, an IoT solution building should be as fast as you see it here. So to have the right IoT platform, you should be able to quickly plug up a device, be able to extract the data out of it. You don't need to be worried about what device to choose. There are some recommendations. For example, I'll be talking about software edge Cumulocity a bit today. So in that, Cumulocity talks about the certified devices that you can go with. And that certified devices, when you install the Cumulocity agent software on that, it will have all the basic software, firmware to go with in order to communicate the device data with the Cumulocity agent itself. When you register the device on the Cumulocity agent, so it will allow you to, start communicating with the platform through your device. That way, your first step in terms of connecting device is done as less as 5 minutes. So at this point, I will actually walk you through a small demo that we have created for you. Let me refresh the screen just to make sure it's all connected. Okay, great. So right now I'm in the Cumulocity IoT homepage. This is cockpit where your core business functions are performed. You can actually create groups of your devices. Okay, I will need to log in again. Give me a second. Yeah, this is the cockpit page where you can perform the core business functionalities like organizing or hierarchically organizing your devices and assets, and then creating alarms out of it. So when any device is undergoing, for example, think about this particular use case. If you have an access control solution and you have a door lock, for example, a banking system, and that door lock is expected to, it's a common event if the door is open between like morning 8 a.m. to say evening 6 p.m. But if the door is open at midnight 12 o'clock, that's an anomaly in the regular pattern. That's what it captures, and those are some things you can create as alarms and then be able to see them here. And as you see the green light blinking here, it's real time. It's able to capture the real time device information and then convert them into events and measurements or alarms so that you can take necessary actions upon it. And you can create various data points, alarms, and events just like we spoke, and data point libraries where you can create a simple measurement out of a specific IoT device. And this is what I'll be leveraging for my demo today. In fact, we are also planning for a detailed talk on how Cumulocity functions, where we will have a detailed walkthrough of the Cumulocity platform itself. But in this particular webinar, we would like to stay at high level and then just walk you through a very basics of Cumulocity and then walk you through the demo itself. So yeah, this is a next view of Cumulocity, default view of Cumulocity, where you will perform all the administrations related to user management, business rules, and applications management, etc. Cumulocity allows you to build a Node.js framework, React.js frameworks, framework-based applications, and then embed them into the Cumulocity platform itself. And you can also create custom widgets for detailed view as well. The other default view that it presents is like the device management. In the device management, it allows you to create or register devices. And if you have if you're done with your POCs and you are getting to creating large or bulk device registration, then Cumulocity also has that functionality to bulk register the devices. And when you also are dealing with the bulk devices data, it should also be scalable accordingly to deal with all that. So Cumulocity can do that. Upscaling, like upscaling or downscaling of the systems is also possible. Of course, some of these things are actually related to the licensing requirements. You may need to work with your provider itself. And this map essentially shows the geographical map of where those devices are actually located. When any physical security or data security breaches happen, or physical security breaches essentially happen, then that particular device status will be also tracked real time on the Cumulocity platform. And when I said like data security breach, Cumulocity does follow a lot of advanced security mechanisms, starting with HTTPS communication from device to the endpoint or Cumulocity platform itself, the cloud platform itself. And it also exchanges the data or JSON, and it uses advanced security mechanisms like OAuth and JWT, etc. At this point, let me also walk you through a webmethods.io platform. This is also a a software AG iPaaS solution, a software AG component, integration platform as a service. This is the home page of it. Right now we are in the projects tab, where it lists out all the projects existing. Just like think about if you are familiar with webmethods environment, think like each of these projects are like your packages. In the monitoring page, it will show you how many like the workflow executions, and how many workflow executions have happened, out of which how many are successful, how many have timed out or failed. In this case, it is 79. All of them are like successful. And this is a free trial version. So allocated credits are like 5,000. So for 79 are used. So the usage percentage is also listed out here. And on the recipes, so the webmethods.io actually provides out-of-the-box recipes for you to get started with development easily, and also empowering the citizen development. So I'm not going to walk through all of those recipes. I'll just do a CRM just for high level, and it will show you what are various CRM-related recipes available. You can also create a new recipe if you want, and then import it into webmethods.io integration here. So with this, and let me also show you one specific example of Cumulocity IoT webinar. In this one, you see the workflows. Think like each of them are like different flows, and the configurations needed. So it actually connects to the Cumulocity tenant itself. So one of the advantages here is that your iPaaS platform, integration platform as a service, is directly connected to your IoT cloud platform. When they both are connected, the device data generated and shared with IoT platform, or transmitted to the IoT platform, is also received on webmethods.io platform real time, and that also allows you to integrate with your other enterprise applications in real time as well. So if you go to the logs, it will actually list the interface specific logs for that specific project. So it's going to take a little bit of time, probably because of my network issues. But let me go back to the projects, and I'll walk you through the specific demo today, which is I'll go back to the simulators. We have a simple data simulation created here, which generates a measurement for every few seconds. And that measurement is actually going to trigger this particular flow on webmethods.io. So if you see that, a Cumulocity measurement is actually triggering this flow. So I have created necessary triggers. So the Cumulocity tenant details are also configured. If you look at it, the device ID is also listed here, and you are getting the measurement from this specific device ID. And that measurement information is actually passed to my next step, which is insert device data. What essentially I'm trying to do here is I'm capturing the device data measurement and inserting it to an on-premise integration, on-premise database server. So usually the Cumulocity generates a large bunch of data. So you may want to consider loading this data into a cloud system like AWS Data Lake, etc. in the cloud. Or if it is an on-premise platform, if you are using like a big data kind of systems, then you may want it. You may want to load it into those machines. So for this specific demo, I have only chosen a simple use case of loading it into a database. So this specific step actually does the insertion of the device data into on-premise database. So I've created on-premise integration server connection. Here, when I click on next, it will show you the mapping between the measurement data generated with the insert device data service itself. So this is by default mapping, self-understandable. If you go to the next step, it will show you what is the input that this particular flow is getting or map is getting, and what is the output it is actually generating out of it, and then it's done. So the next step is kind of stop. So it's kind of right now stopped. Let me go to the on-premise integration server configurations. So I'm on web methods integration server version 10.3, I suppose. Yeah, I'm on the web methods integration server 10.3. This is the integration server admin console. On the left side, you see various options. Under web methods cloud, we have configured the web methods tenant information over here. And this is the user ID with which we are connecting to that specific tenant. And under the accounts, you have created a specific account for this on-premise integration server on that. And the applications you have also registered or defined the insert device data application and published onto the the web methods.io platform. So these are the basic configurations I did. And I'm going to the IDE where the specific service was developed. So the insert measurement is a service which is executed. It takes input as these 4 values, just like the way they are coming from the web methods.io environment. When you map it and execute it, it will actually create entries into this database. So let me quickly run the count query. It has about 64 entries. And if you run the select star on that, it will show you the 64 entries along with few columns. It's a dummy database that we have created for this demo. So it has about 4 columns. So when I go back to web methods integration cloud and activate this flow, the workflow activated successfully. Now for every few seconds, Cumulocity is gonna send that measurement simulated data to web methods.io integration cloud, and that will be live integrated with your on-premise database system. So if I rerun this count again, the 64 count is gonna increase. Now it is 66. And if you see select star from streaming data, it will also show you the increased count. It is actually configured for every 5 seconds. So the count is gonna really grow like very quickly. So if I re-execute this command, it will show 69. This is like a basic use case, but all our intention was to show you how the device data can be directly integrated with your enterprise application systems. So each workflow execution, whether it is a failure or success or timeout, you can also send or configure alerts, an email alert or an SMS alert, or you can also integrate with the ServiceNow kind of systems to be able to create tickets and track them as well. With this demo, I'll go back to my my presentation, and I'll talk about the Kellton Tech Solutions expertise and value proposition. So Kellton Tech has an IoT Center of Excellence. We are pretty much veterans in this area. We have been performing IoT R&D plus service projects for our customers across the industries since many years, almost 7+ years. We have our own Kellton Tech IoT platform called Optima, and we have some customers in the oil and gas industries and access control solutions as well. We have about nearly 50 plus IoT experts who are working on all these, in-house IoT Optima projects, as well as the other IoT platforms like um, AWS, Azure, Cumulocity, and SAP Leonardo IoT platforms as well. Would like to our Kellton Tech Solutions Internet IoT COE homepage. Um, this is our enterprise IoT solutioning um, catalog. So we provide solutions in multiple IoT platforms, as mentioned here, including Azure as well. And our offerings will also include IoT product development, systems integration, managed services, and you can pretty much go through this slide. I do not want to spend too much of time on this advertisement. I just wanted to give you an idea of what Kellton Tech can, how Kellton Tech can help you with your IoT solutions. In this specific use case, I'll be talking about a customer that we have. Usually our implementation approach, which has been like proven to be successful and working for us, is pretty much to conduct, and if based on the customer's priorities, we will conduct implementation and feasibility workshop. We will have a number of discussions with the enterprise architect and IoT architects within the organizations, come up with understand the current processes, how the data flow happens between the systems, understand pretty much the specific industries use cases, and what is the specific use cases that the organization is looking at. And we'll get into the strategic planning, as part of which we'll plan various scenarios matching with the workshop discussions, what we learned from that. And we will also create overall IoT implementation strategy. And if you have legacy integration, legacy systems like mainframes or SAP systems, how do you on-premise SAP systems and stuff like that, and how do you integrate with those? We will actually create our strategies, walk at every stage. We will walk with our customer. We will explain and walk them through the solutions that we are going to come up with, develop business cases, the low-level business cases, and define the ROI model. So the key business, the key benefit that we are going to bring to the table is to, at every business use case we are going to develop and groom upon, we will also be mapping it up with the ROI of that particular business use case, and then define the implementation roadmap, perform a IoT pilot project, showcase results, learn, receive feedback, learn from the IoT implementation, redo the pilots, but then conclude it within, like, it's a time boxed pilot essentially. So we will do that, and then we will plan for solution scaling, and then increasing it, increasing the scope of that IoT projects. But then at this point, some of our customers, like we say, they actually wanted to stop their initial scope of the projects, or phase one of their projects is essentially to integrate devices and then be able to automate some of the functions that they do, or receive some of the customer behavior analytics or stuff like that. But then the increasing opportunities or growth opportunities for them also, or some of our existing customers also do that, is to integrate this IoT generated data with your end systems and look at real business benefit that it brings to the table when you have a fully connected organization. And I essentially belong to the digital integration practice of Kellton Tech Solutions. Predominantly on the software edge side, we have a slide talking about it. Although we are technologically agnostic with respect to providing IoT solutions, in this specific slide, as I covered the Cumulocity and WebMethods IoT Cloud, I wanted to talk about other digital business platform products from software edge as well, and our expertise in those areas, starting from device integrations to analytics. So we will be able to walk you through as business consultants as well as technology consultants. So at that point, I would like to stop, and then I welcome if you have any questions. Krisha?
Hi, Siva. Thank you so much for sharing that information with us. We have time for probably one quick question, and then we'll have to answer the rest of the questions via email. So one of the questions that came in was, can the software AG IoT platform integrate with both cloud and on-premise enterprise application platforms?
Yeah, essentially the answer to that is yes. in our demo as well, we have covered Cumulosity integration with WebMethods IO, which is iPaaS directly, which is internally talking to on-premise integration server and does the database. So the answer to that question is directly yes, but there is another way. You don't always need to have WebMethods.io platform to be able to communicate from Cumulosity to your on-premise database. You can also do that through your on-premise integration server itself. You don't need to have WebMethods.io platform. You can use the Cloud Streams technology also, or Cloud Streams adapter also on on-premise integration server to directly actually poll your Cumulosity for live measurements and live alarms or events.
Okay, great. So as I said, thank you again so much, everyone, for your time. You've been a fantastic audience, and I know we had several other questions come in via the chat and the Q&A panel, so do not worry. Siva and our team of experts will be happy to respond to those via email. So if you have additional questions, feel free to email us. You can respond to the email address on your webinar invite. And then Siva is also sharing on the screen some email addresses so you can contact them to have your questions answered. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be sending out the recorded version of this webinar in the next few days and make the slide deck available to you. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to the next time. Bye-bye.